Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 1356, written by UrbanBong. My old radio had a will of its own. I grew up in a small town in Georgia, kind of out in the woods. My grandfather had purchased land out there, but later moved to some suburbs and left the land to his kids. My uncle got the original house, close to the road. My aunt graveled the driveway quite a ways further into the property and lived in a trailer there. When I was 6, we moved from Tennessee and my parents built their dream home on my dad's share of the property, sharing my aunt's driveway, but diverting right before her trailer and going even further onto the land. So we were pretty far away from the main road. They built a single-story home, but it was kind of like on a half hill and had a basement. So there was a back door that led into one of the rooms in the basement, but the rest of it was underground. They always planned on turning the basement into a bottom story, but it really never got finished. Only the right half rooms really had drywall up, and the 2 left rooms were never drywalled. My dad used it as a workshop area. My dad developed epilepsy and lost his job, but he was doing landscape type work for his morbidly obese hoarder woman. The woman got evicted from her home, and our unfinished basement, which was already full of old stuff my parents had gotten over the years, became filled with a bunch of her hoarder stuff because she was paying us to keep it, I guess. All of these things were stored in the large room that the back door opened into. I'm somewhere around the age of 12 when this happened. My parents had taken my sister out shopping or something, I think, but the main thing is I was home alone. I was upstairs watching TV and got up to use the bathroom. I'm in the hallway and I hear music coming from somewhere. I finally trace the music coming from a vent down close to the floor. 12 years old me knows the ventilation ducting is on the roof of the basement, so I decided to go on an adventure and put a stop to this music. The basement access is right after you go through the front door of the house. Looks almost like a closet, but if you open it, there is a stairwell that leads down, and then cuts a 90-degree angle left and continues down. So when you're standing at the top, you can pretty much only see stairs and walls and no basement. I always hated it, and it creeped me out, and that stairwell usually had the only working light. And because you went underground, the basement was always way colder than upstairs. I slowly walked down the lit stairwell into the darkness. When you reach the bottom, it opens up onto the left side basement rooms that were unfinished and where my dad's workshop is. I peeked around the edge of the stairwell and looked down the hallway into the more finished areas. While I'm doing that, I tried to turn on the lights because the light switch is right there at the stairwell. Click, click, no light. But coming from the big room with all the hoarder stuff in it, there's a green glowing light. I can't not check it out, I have to know. So I go into the darkness with my heart pounding. I make it to the accessway of the room and stand there for a second or two, getting my bearings and trying to figure out where the light is coming from. In the very middle of the room, there's a path cutting through all the junk in there, leading to the back door. And right next to the back door, sitting on some old dressers, is a really old, really big stereo system my dad had picked up. It was playing on some radio station or something, with the little green screen causing some weird green glow. I ran in and grabbed the plug and unplugged it really quick, because I didn't want to make the time for the creepy darkness to try to figure out which button turned it off. I tested the back door real quick, which was always locked, to make sure it was still locked. Then I take off like a demon is right behind me, towards the light of the stairwell, and zip back up the stairs and slam and lock the door to the basement. Take a breath, and laugh at myself for being silly. Go back to watching TV. After a little bit, I decided to go back to my room and get a book I was really interested in. Crossing through the hallway, I heard a sound that made my hair stand up, and my eyes actually started to tear up. I still have zero explanation for it to this day. But there was the music again, drifting up through the vents. I took off running out the front door, ran all the way up the driveway to my uncle's house, and refused to leave until I heard my parents driving down the gravel, returning home. When we got home, I made my dad come and check it out with me. Sure enough, the radio was plugged in again. My dad said maybe I had grabbed on one of the other plugs that was laying down near the outlet, but I remember the radio had been the only thing plugged in when I grabbed it. He also said it was probably an electrical issue in the radio that made it turn on since it was so old. but frick that property and frick that house. I played in the woods all the time and would find old Native American arrowheads. If you climbed through a barbed wire fence and went onto the neighbor's land, there was the foundation from a burnt-out settler home from the 1800s with 3 graves on it. All of my family members had stories about seeing weird stuff in the woods. Both of my parents died in that house, and one of the tenants that rented it after I went to live with my grandparents said they saw my mom. I don't believe in ghost stories and think people make most of that stuff up, including the seeing my mom thing and a lot of the stuff my family saw in the woods. But I know I freaking heard that music, and I know I unplugged that radio. Case notes file 1356. My old radio had a will of its own. A haunted radio? Possessed by the essence of whoever owned it prior? These objects of meaning can bind part of a spirit to them, almost like the Horcrux in Harry Potter, but in this case unintentional and not requiring murder, which is good. Strong emotion is my guess. Emotion is this flaring of the soul, and those tendrils can lash on to things. One thing is for sure, and on my end, when I get my off-grid cabin in the remote woods, I'm not going to be buying any antique furniture or radios. Who knows what's imbued in them? Play it safe. You're out there all alone. Case file number 1357, written by DontDefineMeAsshole, the day I saw blood in the mirror. One time, I was at a super old, but also very high-end restaurant in my hometown. There have always been rumors the place was haunted, as the building is over 100 years old and it's been known to have a few ghost sightings. I went to use the restroom, but the whole time I was there, it felt like I was being watched. I went to wash my hands, looked in the mirror, nothing weird. Looked at my hands and saw blood everywhere, all over my hands, all over the sink. It was on my clothes, it was everywhere. I looked up in the mirror really fast and looked back at my hands. Totally normal, clean hands, nothing weird at all. Case file number 1357, the day I saw blood in the mirror. A vivid flash of the past. I think you witnessed the aftermath of a murder that took place in that restaurant in the bathroom area. Maybe a long time ago, but very disturbing flash, and I wouldn't want to experience that, but probably what happened. Now time for the quote of the day. I have the consolation of having added nothing to my private fortune during my public service, and of retiring with hands clean as they are empty. Thomas Jefferson. You get a lot of that these days, don't you? Corruption in government. I mean, you have public servants that go into office with $100,000, $200,000 a year. I mean, a good salary, but then they come out with hundreds of millions of dollars. How does that happen? I don't really buy it. Oh, they got book deals or they sold art or something. Yeah, that's a way to get around the bribing laws. It's what government tends to attract, people who have no scruples, you could say. Not the best people. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.